Hello, this is Gary at Jack Raven Bushcraft. Thank you for watching our video. This week I'm going to talk around hardwood and softwoods for bow drilling. When I'm teaching bow drilling, the question of hardwoods and softwoods often comes up. Now, I just would like to point you to a video that I did previously, so I'll add a link into this, around the component parts of a bow drill set. So in that video, I looked at the various parts that you need, what they can be made of, but I also described two different approaches to bow drilling. So one is where we make the hearthboard and the spindle from the same material, and the other is where we make them from a different material. To add a little clarity, this is the hearthboard, this is the spindle, and as I say, we have two different approaches, broadly speaking, where these two component parts can be made from the same material, in which case this kind of question of hardwoods and softwoods is mute, or our other option, we make these from different materials, which is where the question of hardwoods and softwoods comes into play. In very broad terms, the spindle needs to be harder than the hearthboard. If this is softer, so if your spindle is softer than your hearthboard, then essentially the spindle is just going to wear down, and you're not going to grind away wood on the hearthboard to form the powder. However, there are some subtlety, some nuance around this as well. So typically, if we talk about a softwood, then we're referring to a conifer, and if we talk about a hardwood, we're talking about a deciduous tree. So for example, if you go into a timber yard and you ask for softwood, they're likely to point you at the whitewood section, spruce and pine and these kinds of things. If you ask them for hardwood, they are likely to be pointing you towards oak and so on. So in broad terms, as I say, when we're talking about softwood, people often mean conifer, and when we talk about hardwood, people often mean a deciduous tree. Unfortunately, this doesn't necessarily follow through in real life. So there are some conifers that are harder than some deciduous trees. So a very obvious example of a deciduous tree that isn't particularly hard would be balsa. So balsa is a deciduous tree, but the wood is very, very soft indeed. Another example at the kind of the flip side of this, something like western red cedar, which is a coniferous tree, the wood on that is actually pretty hard. So these kind of definitions of hardwood and softwood, whilst they might work in a timber yard, they don't, in my view, turn out to be particularly useful when it comes to describing the properties of wood for tasks such as bow drilling. I tend to think about this in terms of the density of the wood, and so removing hardwood and softwood from the equation entirely. So just if we think about this in a slightly different way, so in terms of heat produced from wood, if we take a kilogram of wood, doesn't matter what species, we take a kilogram of wood and we burn it, then we're going to get exactly the same amount of heat produced. So whether we burn a kilogram of balsa wood, a kilogram of oak, a kilogram of pine, a kilogram of beech, it really doesn't matter. We'll get the same amount of heat produced. However, a kilogram of balsa wood might well be this kind of size, a kilogram of oak might well be this kind of size. This is because oak is denser than the balsa. So if you take a cubic meter of wood instead of a set weight, we take a set volume and you burn it and measure the heat that is produced, we get a different set of results. The results that I've seen for the British Isles, the tree or the wood that produces the most heat output per cubic meter is holly, and that's because holly is a very dense wood. Closely behind it you've got things like beech and oak, for instance. So again, this is because they are particularly dense woods. When it comes to bow drilling, rather than thinking of coniferous trees or deciduous trees, I tend to think about the density, and I find that a much more useful kind of measure, way of thinking about it. So rather than thinking, does the spindle have to be a hardwood deciduous and does this have to be a softwood coniferous, think of it, this bit has to be denser than this bit. I hope that's useful to you, something that you could take with you into your own endeavours, experiments with bow drilling. I will try my best to get some more content out next week. Make sure you don't miss out on that. You could subscribe either to our blog or to our YouTube channel, either of which are Jack Raven Bushcraft. In the meantime, take care.